Hi guys, I'm Maya, and today we are reading the Complete Kama Sutra. We are going to explore the conduct of the only wife. Before we get started though, if you like my videos, if you like the kinds of things I talk about, if you haven't already, then give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And make sure you come back. Once you subscribe, then you get notifications of when I'm coming online. If you're not sure when I come online, I am at the moment just doing live streams, usually 8 a.m. or 2 p.m. GMT. That's British time, because we are in a beautiful, at the moment, surprisingly, very sunny Britain, UK, Scotland. I'm in Scotland. Anyway, right. So today we are talking about the conduct of the only wife. Now, as we know, the Kama Sutra is an ancient text. Most people would probably think, well, this is an ancient text. What does it have to do with my life right now? But if you think about it, we have now come to a point in our lives where a lot of change is happening very, very rapidly in terms of the human psyche. Human beings have been here forever and a day, and a lot of these changes have happened over the last 100-odd years. So in terms of the human mind, a lot of things haven't really changed. So let's just explore this chapter a little bit and think about, well, maybe are there some things that we can learn from this? Are there some things that you think might be relevant right now? If you are married, if you're thinking about getting married, are there any lessons that you can learn from this book? Now, if you probably haven't watched any of my other videos, I spent quite a lot of time in between relationships because, I got married later on in life. I spent quite a lot of time in between relationships working on myself and trying to understand, well, what is this world that I'm a part of? What are the different things that might be expected of me in a relationship? What are the things that I need to maybe work on in the way that I communicate within relationships? And what am I actually looking for in a relationship? And one of the things that came up in my travels, as you can see, this book is very well read because I read this when I first got it back to back. I became completely obsessed with it. So I read this book because someone suggested I should. And I just thought, well, the Kama Sutra is just really seedy. It's not for me. But it was really because most of the Kama Sutra that, were popularized at the time were just actually the mechanical pictures where you're just like, my God, I'm going to put my back in trying to get into one of those positions. But the Kama Sutra itself is actually a really decent book. It's a decent, just to give you an idea of the things that are in there. It talks about, the 3 aims of life, how you acquire knowledge, the conduct of the well-bred townsman. I mean, this is nothing to do with the big SEX, right? And, the reflections on the intermediaries who assist the lover in his enterprises. If you're from a country where I'm from, which is Zimbabwe, when you're courting a woman or you're being courted, everybody gets involved. You have your friends who are trying to tell the guy how to act. You have, when he does finally make his move and you become his girlfriend, before you can officialize that relationship, there have to be messengers involved in getting the message across to the other side of the family. So this talks about all of that kind of stuff. And you think, wow, okay, this was happening in where? In India? Oh my God, amazing. Amorous advances. It's got, sort of guides on acquiring a wife. It's got guides on other men's wives. Can you believe it? This is an old book. And you're just like, what? Why would you be telling people how to acquire other people's wives? It's got guides on courtesans. It's even got a thing about occult practices. Now, this is the bit that I didn't actually, pay much attention to. I didn't go there because I thought, well, that's a bit... But this is one, when I first read it, I didn't really pay much attention to because I was single at the time and I was working on myself. But I did glean through it. And it's got some quite interesting things. So today we're going to go through a few key points that come up in this chapter. If you want to get this book, there's a link in the description below, which takes you straight to the UK version of the book, and you can get it through that. Now, the first thing that this says, point number 1, the only wife is totally trusting, considering her husband as a god and is completely devoted to him. Contemplate that. I mean, after all, nowadays we have the choice to get married or to not get married. But this suggests that once you are married, once you are someone's wife, then you should consider this person to be basically as a god to you. You respect him completely. You might not agree with him, but you respect him completely and you are devoted to him. So that raises quite a lot of questions, which I will allow you guys to ask me in the comment section. And let's get talking about this. The woman takes responsibility of the household. Yeah? There's a lot of stuff going on even now, a lot of rhetoric about the whole work-life balance, who's in charge of what realms, what spheres inside the household. Still, we realize that as women, we still have the ability to multitask small little jobs. So around the house, you got to do small little jobs. We still have that ingrained within us. Yes, we want our men to help. And a lot of the problems we do have in relationships is how do we actually negotiate who is doing what, who's responsible for what. When it comes to taking the rubbish out, it ends up just being the man's job. Little DIY jobs, surprisingly, still end up being a man's job. I mean, we can change a light, but it still ends up being a man's job. So this says the woman takes responsibility for the household, and so on. She devotes herself entirely to the household and takes on the domestic tasks. What is the situation in your household right now? Who's in charge of domestic tasks and how are you sharing up these responsibilities? The good wife attends to cleaning the clothes, tidying the rooms, flower arrangements, cleaning the floor, being attractive to gaze upon. So a man should look upon you and go, you look good. No pressure. And they have, there would 3 daily rites of offering to the gods and of worshiping. So that's completely, it's not, entrenched in my belief. So we know that. There is no state that is happier than the state of marriage. Marriage is hard work. People have this whole thing, I think I blame fairy tales. We have this whole thing that you think, well, then they got married and they lived happily ever after. The end. And you're like, oh yeah, that's great. Nobody ever tells you, so what happened to Snow White and Prince Charming? What were the, issues? What was the setup in the house? What about the times when he wanted to have a meal cooked and she just couldn't be bothered? What is the negotiation when it comes to those kind of things? It never says. It's just like, hey, marriage is happily ever after, now move on. On to the next one. And it's not. It takes quite a lot of work. So the wife behaves suitably to her husband's elderly parents, the servants they have, his sisters, and their husbands. So it's respect your in-laws, his parents, his siblings, and the siblings' families as well. So you have to respect the extended family. We teach that a lot within Zimbabwean culture and, sort of the different communities. But is this something that is eroding in modern relationships? And if it is eroding, then why is it eroding? Why is this being challenged? Think about it. Let's get talking in the comment section. This is I read it again. I was just like, wow, this is deep, actually. And it's got, sort of recommendations of all the different herbs. I mean, seriously, it actually goes into the different herbs and plants that you should have. So you should have aromatic plants and vegetables. I don't know why. Maybe it's just, it's stimulating all the different scents. Maybe when the man comes home and he has all these different smells, it's supposed to be appealing to him in some way. But, they recommend sugarcane, mustard, cumin, asafoetida, cinnamon, fennel, and small cardamoms. It's actually recommended that you should be growing that. Am I growing any of that in my house? No. We have it in the cupboard, dried up, ready to use, but I'm not growing any of that in my household. And then it says there should be single plot rows of, I can't pronounce this one, amalaka, jasmine, yellow amaranth, red jasmine, valerian, kadamba, China rose, and other ornamental plants. So this is supposedly to make the household look nice. So when you have, maybe if I'm thinking sort of like a little inner sanctum, like a little, sort of chill out spot that you can then go to and you can sit and gaze at nature and be at one with nature and feel peaceful and relaxed. Maybe it relaxes the woman, maybe it relaxes the man. I don't know, but this is actually recommended. As the only wife, you are to keep beggars out of the way, any wandering monks, women of bad reputation, mountebanks, I don't know who they are, and magicians. Interesting. With regard to food, she must reflect this he likes, this he doesn't like, this he drinks, and this he doesn't drink. So it's, I suppose, in a big way, it's saying, just be respectful of your husband's tastes and try and cater towards those. Most women know if their husbands have any kind of allergies, you would not be cooking things that he has allergies to. You would not be cooking things that he probably won't eat because it's like, well, what's the point of actually making the meal? Are you actually cooking in the household? This is the other thing, actually, because I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine who's in London, and she doesn't actually own a stove. They don't actually have a stove. They eat out. And if they don't eat out, then they buy food and they come back home and they warm it up if it's gone too cold. And that for me was just like, wow, okay, that must take quite a lot of negotiating. I mean, what about the days when you can't be bothered to go out? Do you get up on a Sunday? Sundays when you can't be bothered and you're just like, oh, I'll just roll downstairs and I'll sort of make a Sunday breakfast, full English. You can't even do that. You can't have off days. You've actually got to go out. But so this is quite interesting. Are you actually aware of the things that your husband enjoys to eat? And if you had to, could you make him his favorite dish? Now is actually a really important time to think about this because it's like, around here at any rate, the takeaways are closed. So if the takeaways are closed, what are people eating in their households? Interesting one. Oh, well, this is about maintaining the mystery of wedlock. Sorry, I'm skipping through quite a few because, it's a whole chapter and we don't have that much time to go through it. So she says, even when alone with her husband, she never shows herself without her jewels. So you should always adorn yourself in such a way as to be pretty and absolutely beautiful. In other words, even men like to gaze upon cute little dolls. That's highly controversial. As you can see, my husband is gazing upon this. So sometimes he gets the good jewel, sometimes he just gets this. And he's at peace with it. And, the kitchen must be apart, far from inquisitive eyes. It has to be clean, well kept and ordered, and located where no stranger's glance can penetrate. So maybe they were quite secretive about what sorts of meals or what sorts of ways of preparing their meals they had. A lot of Indian dishes, wherever you are in India, are just amazing. And you just think, how did you make that? How did you make that? And even with step-by-step recipes, because I do follow these recipes on YouTube, even with step-by-step recipes, you can never replicate them. Family secrets, family secrets. So this is quite an interesting one. And if her husband behaves badly, she must show her displeasure without exaggerating her reproaches. And it says, reprove him without insistence, saying, do not do that again. Let it not happen anymore. How many of y'all can say that to your husbands? Think about it. Can you actually reproach your husband in such a way and say, do not do that anymore. Don't let it happen anymore. And he won't do it. Apparently this worked. And it says when she has any reproach to make to him, she does so without dramatizing. And when he's alone, or perhaps in front of his friends. If the opportunity arises, interesting. She must avoid disagreeable words, turning her glance aside, speaking with a pout, sitting on the threshold of the house, speaking with a pout. We used to get told off for that, actually. Does anyone remember when we were kids? Like, well, in Shona, we call it kufundumara, scowling. Like when you're talking to your elder and you're being disrespectful and then you're like, so people were like, whoa, okay. So you had to put a smile on, even if you didn't agree with what they were saying. So it's actually saying the same thing. Avoid sitting on the threshold of the house, watching the door when given instructions, or staying alone for a long time in one room of the house. No. And for amorous encounters, the only wife must dress luxuriously with many jewels, many flowers, and many ointments. That sounds wonderful, but it's just like, oh, come on, the effort. I would love to. I mean, half the time I can hardly even, get the bed sorted. How many beds do I have to spread every single day? I've got like, yeah, 3 beds to spread every single day. But, when you do have amorous encounters, ladies, you must make sure you're dressed luxuriously with many jewels, many flowers, and many ointments. So you smell absolutely gorgeous. You're just on this bed of beauty. And so you look gorgeous to approach. All right. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. There's quite a lot over here. Some of it is very, very specific. Even in terms of telling you what kind of herbs and plants and stuff that you should grow as an only wife. This is a really interesting one. She must never speak to anyone about what she possesses or what she knows about her husband. How many people can actually say that? I know there's a lot of situations that I've come across and that I've heard. I mean, I don't discuss my husband's personal issues with anyone, period. Because I just think, you know what, you're giving people ammunition, preferably to, sort of shoot you in the face with it. So I don't discuss stuff that goes on within my household with anyone, because at the end of the day, we all have different things that we expect from relationships, from life, from, life partners. And when you start telling people your business, people start giving you their opinion because they assume that you want to hear their opinion. And that's how a lot of relationships break down, because people are too busy telling people everything about what goes on inside their household. So I quite agree with this, that you must never speak to anyone about what you possess or what you know about your husband. If your husband's doing ting and ting and retete, down low stuff, don't tell anybody. You married that dude and you knew he was undercover. Keep it to yourself. If you're religious, tell God and ask his forgiveness and find if there's a way you can pull him back from that, if that's what needs to be done. So you don't tell anyone about anything that your husband is doing. Keep it to yourself. Keep it between you. The end. And I quite respect that, even in a modern sort of relationship, because people get too feisty with themselves. People get too carried away. And people end up with opinions about, well, your husband ought to be doing this. You ought to be doing this with your husband. And it's like, you know what? It's not your life. You've made your decision to be married to this particular person. So anyone else just needs to back off. I respect this statement. I quite like this statement. Wow. So in comparison with women of the same age, you should excel them by her accomplishments in the kitchen and in her behavior. So I don't want to brag, but I'm a great cook. I get very bored of food very easily. I did food and nutrition all the way up to high school. And besides all that, I'm just a foodie. I absolutely love food and I'm always exploring food. Most of my discoveries of countries start with food. And once I discover food, I want to find out how to cook it. So in the kitchen, oh my God, I am so good. Can't nobody beat me. If it's the way to a man's heart is through his stomach, or my husband's stomach is well and truly taken care of. I don't repeat meals. Even now that I've got 2 kids, I still cook a different meal every single day for dinner and for lunch. The only thing that we sometimes repeat is breakfast. Because I like to keep things interesting. I like to keep things fresh. It's like, you see things happening in the kitchen, and it's very therapeutic as well, being in the kitchen, cooking together. Now my kids are starting to get involved. My youngest, not so much, she just eats everything. But my firstborn is now like starting to get involved with washing things. So it's quite fun for me to be able to create all of that kind of stuff. But it says that compared to women of the same age, you should excel them in your accomplishments in the kitchen and in your behavior. As a woman, you should always be one of those women that people think, how the hell does she do that? I know I'm a long way with a lot of things. Because for me, things like putting makeup on every single day, getting my nails did every single day, that's still just hard work for me. But in a lot of other ways, people still wonder, oh my God, how does she do that? How does she manage that? How is she on top of that? And I like that. Give it a little air of mystery and mysticism. I agree with this point. Wow. And it's this is one that's talking about, different ways in which you can prepare things. It's all about preparing molasses with sugarcane and oil with colza. How you can spin cotton and make cloth. This stuff really goes deep. It really does go deep. Wow. This is interesting. So it's basically, as a woman, it's also encouraging that you should be a homemaker. It's saying that you lay in stocks of wine. She lays in stocks of wine in jars of liquors. ready in case of need, and keeps track of the rise and fall in prices. So you should always have some kind of reserve. Now, expanding that from just, wine and alcohol, which is great, but, generally in terms of housekeeping, this is something that I grew up being taught, that there should always be a reserve of something. So you should never be in a situation where every single day you're scratching around wondering, I've run out of dishwashing liquid, I've run out of toilet paper, I've run out of food in the cupboard, I've run out of milk in the cupboard. You should always just have your house sorted, your pantry sorted in advance. So everything should just always be there, handy. It frees up a certain part of your mind. Again, I was speaking this week about, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. When you're constantly thinking about what am I going to eat, you can't allow yourself to think about bigger, deeper, greater things. Whenever I've wanted to do a project that was new, I found that I've needed to clean my house first, like literally physically clean my house. I've needed to sort out things that, old bits of paperwork, sending stuff to my accountant. I've needed to sort all that out. And then I'm able to concentrate on the bigger things that I want to focus on. So it gives you, really sort of important life lessons in that sense. But again, there's still that divided thing that, I think a lot of the times I seem to hear from even like some of my friends that it's who's responsible for what. And some people will nag a person into submission to do it. But if it's in your nature to do it naturally, just do it. Just do it. I mean, you're in a partnership. If you're the only wife, you're in a partnership. He's not going to ask the second wife or the third wife or the fourth wife. It's all on you. And if you can't accept that, you have a hard job ahead of you. And then it says, in her relations with the father-in-law and mother-in-law, this is a huge issue at the moment. Please go crazy with this one. I want to hear what people's opinions are. So in her relations with the father-in-law and mother-in-law, she must be submissive and not contradict them. She must speak gently in front of them and not laugh too loudly. She must show that she agrees with what pleases them, and as far as what displeases them, she must act as to not contradict them. How did you feel about that? Let it sink in. We have an ongoing, shall I say, issue of debate in Zimbabwe, where it's almost as if there's an accepted notion that the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law should always have friction. They should, relate to each other properly, but there is still loads of issues between mothers-in-law and daughters-in-law. The mother-in-law always thinks that the daughter-in-law is not good enough for her son, yada, 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 all the rest of it. What do people feel about that? Should you be subservient to your father-in-law and mother-in-law? Are these battles actually battles that are worth fighting? You obviously know that you might have your husband at whatever point in his life, but these people are people that raised him. So if you start trying to have, a friction and a fight with them, is this fight justified? Is there any other way that can avoid having these conflicts? Does it involve getting your husband to maybe communicate in a respectful way to his parents? I know there's so much friction in some situations with this relationship. I'm so amazed at how amazing my in-laws are. I mean, it's like, touch wood. I have the best in-laws on planet Earth. My in-laws are just basically live and let live. My in-laws are cool, like unbelievably cool. We can talk about stuff, which to me was frightening. And, in the beginning, I just thought, this cannot be right. I have a good husband and I have good in-laws. Something must be wrong. It's like, the penny's going to drop some point. We're going to wake up and it's like, oh, it was the Truman Show, honey. We put all this stuff together. But no, this is like half a decade later and they're still absolutely brilliant with me. So what do people feel about this? What are your relationships with your in-laws? And is this something that needs to be worked on? Let's talk about it. This is an interesting one. Never give anything without her husband's knowledge. The only wife must never give anything to anyone without her husband's knowledge, even if it's to the child or to get rid of something. Thoughts? Interesting. Oh, let's see. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay, this is about fasting. That's interesting. Okay, right. Hmm. This one says, when her husband departs on a journey abroad. So basically, once her husband is gone, when the man of the house is gone, she must remove the married woman's marks and her jewels. I don't know what the married woman's marks would have been. Maybe they adorned them as in a particular way, temporary tattoos or something. I don't know. Dedicating herself to devotion, and she must look after the house according to the rules established by her husband. Hmm. Oh. And then it finishes with two verses in this connection. She who wishes the hero's well-being leads an irreproachable life as suits a single wife, whether she comes from a good family or is an ex-courtesan. So in the Kama Sutra, it's actually accepting that, if a woman was previously of ill repute, she can then become a woman of good standing. So whether she's come from a good family or she is an ex-courtesan, her life as a single wife should then become irreproachable. Women protected by good conduct obtain respectability, riches, and love, a social status as well as a protector without otherwise. And that's where it ends. Now, obviously, it then elaborates, the next few pages elaborates what was being discussed in that. But, so that's our chapter on the conduct of a good wife. And I just want to know, are we still, in some ways, living our marriages like that? Are there any lessons that we can pick up from that chapter? Are there any things that maybe would be interesting for you to start trying out within your own marriage? Let me know in the comment section below. I'm very, very interested to find out. Now, this is, I'm still also as well just looking around for maybe, I don't know, objective direction in terms of what happens past the big wedding. Because I know a lot of us are very much into, I've got to have this big wedding, I've got to have this amazing, sort of whole do. But after that, how are we communicating and how are we acting within our marriages to enhance ourselves, to enhance our marriages, and to make our husbands and ourselves feel like we've made the right decision? Because marriage is one of those things that you make this decision at a certain point in your life and you're making a decision. I mean, even if you went and you bought like a car, you still have like a period in which you can return this car. So marriage is one of those things. It's like a house. Once you're in that house, you're not moving out without a whole bunch of friction and a whole lot of legal paperwork. So once you bought this vehicle that you're supposed to be driving forward, you bought it at a certain point in your life, and you've consciously or subconsciously made an agreement with another person that you're going to make this thing work forever. I mean, if you think about the verse, you're like, forsaking all others, which is hard enough in itself, face it, till death do you part. And we're talking about natural death here. And in the Western world, we are going to live a long time, medicine permitting and interventions permitting. So till death do you part. So say, for example, you got married at the age of 30 and you died at 90. You would have been with this person for longer than you were without this person. And for the first 30 years of your life, probably about 15 or 16 of that, you were just like skipping around, not even aware. So, realistically, when you're thinking about this is a huge decision that you make. So what are some of the ways in which we can make each other's lives easier? How can we conduct ourselves as wise? How can we promote certain things as wise? And what should we be expecting back from our husbands when we're in these situations? So this is a really interesting, I found this book really interesting when I was single and I was thinking, Which path am I going to go in? Do I want to be in a relationship? Do I want to just stay on my own? Like, for everyone who's, ever met me in real life and knows me, they know that when I came out of, each time I had a serious relationship, I thought, okay, yeah, this is the one, blah, blah, blah. And I went into it, and I'd obviously, sort of worked to myself before that. And when it broke up, I would take a year out at least. And in that year, I wasn't just like looking at the wall and feeling sorry for myself. Yes, there were periods when I would sit around and I'd be angry, and I'd be crying and be doing whatever. But once you get past that phase, I would sit down and I would start to learn about me, test out different theories of me, different theories of what I'm actually looking for. What are the kinds of people that I'm attracted to? What are the things that are out there? How can I equip myself to be a better person so I can contribute meaningfully to a relationship? So it was in one of those phases of being in my me hermit mode. And I'm talking about completely single. I mean, most people like, I'm single, but they have phone numbers that they can call. I'm talking completely single. I didn't want to give myself the option to have someone that would, distract me from the pain and the emotions that I was feeling, because it was important for me to go through that. So it was in one of those travels that I came across the Kama Sutra. I mean, in one of the other travels, I came across David Data, who's a very controversial person. And if you want me to discuss a little bit about David Data, then just do let me know in the comment section, because, yeah, I find all this stuff just really, really interesting. So like, share, subscribe, ask me questions. Let's get the conversation going, and I will speak to you guys soon. And I'll let you know in the discussion panel as well what time I'm doing again tomorrow. So we've got Thursday and Friday still to go. Normally it's 8 a.m. or 2 p.m. GMT. Those are the times that I would be coming online. So keep an eye out for me either one of the times, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good day, and thank you so much for watching. Bye.